Hi, y'all. Today I want to kind of just talk and discuss what I think is killing this game. Because PlanetSide's population is kind of nosediving hard. In fact, I believe we're actually at statistically the worst section the game's ever been in terms of raw population. For example, it's currently Saturday night at 10 p.m. on Connery, and we have 270 players online. Yeah. And in terms of just raw player count, we're at the lowest the game has been so far. Which is incredible because we're even lower than we were in, say, 2018 to 2019, where we weren't getting like any content in the game appeared to pretty much be in maintenance mode. Despite the fact we've gotten a lot of content recently within the last 3 years, Pop's nosediving kind of hard. So I kind of just want to talk about why I think this is happening. Maybe a few ideas, but largely just why I think this is happening. This is purely just an opinion rant at the end of the day. I'll try and timestamp like the sections I would kind of want to talk about, but other than that, So first things first would be like maps and core features. Okay, so I don't think it's that hard to say that Osher is hurting the game. Let's face it, most people don't like Osher. If you like Osher, that's okay. You know what? It's fair to like Osher, but it's pretty objective that Osher is hurting the game. People log off when Osher is on. People will log off if the content locks and it turns to Osher. Basically, when Osher is open, population is dog shit. Now, why people dislike this is for many reasons. Personally, I think the base design is ass, and I don't think it flows well. And in my opinion, construction doesn't fit with the core, like, experience of the game. So people also just don't really care about construction. So point is, people generally don't like Osher. Again, it's not wrong to like Osher. I'm not going to say that you're mad if you like Osher. But most people objectively do not like Osher, and objectively, via population and alert data, we know Osher is not a popular continent. So in terms of what I would do to maybe fix this, honestly, I would like to see Osher scrapped. At the very least, it needs to be severely reduced. Um, Maybe even just reduce its appearance rate, because as it stands, you cycle through all 5 continents basically at a time. Maybe introducing Osher to only be in every, say, 4 or 5 cycles, just so it doesn't appear as often, would go a long way. I don't know. I don't like Osher. I think Osher was a colossal waste of dev time. But I think it's pretty objective to say that they're not going to just delete Osher. It is a new content. So, but it needs major changes. It needs absolutely major changes. And the second part of the core gameplay things I wanted to talk about was capture the flag. CTF, whatever you want to call it. There's no CTF bases open right now. Sorry, there is Hunter's Blind. Aha. So, I think it's pretty easy to say that people don't generally care for CTF. It was a novel concept. You know what? I will applaud the dev team for trying something new. It's good that they tried something. It's clear it doesn't work. CTF doesn't really flow well. It doesn't play well due to the way the game is played. It might work in, say, 6v6 scrims on Jaeger. It doesn't work in actual live gameplay. Additionally, it had massive performance problems with it that just absolutely crippled Emerald, for example, for a while, and people don't enjoy CTF, and it probably is still causing performance issues. I doubt they ever fully fix that because, let's be real, it's Rogue Planet. So, CTF needs to go. Honestly, all the bases that are CTF can just be reverted into actual point hold bases. I'm sure you can probably find some way to reuse the assets for these, but in my experience, and from what I've read, paying attention to the subreddit for the last 6, 7 years now, CTF is generally not popular. People don't care for it. It has performance issues. You know the deal. Second topic, quote unquote, is just weird development priorities. Now, obviously, the big one is construction, because for some reason they've spent God knows how long in this game trying to make a construction system work and fit in with the core gameplay, which it doesn't. PlanetSide 2 specifically was not really designed around that kind of heavy logistics, build your own basis kind of play. Maybe PlanetSide 1 was, maybe a construction system would have worked in PlanetSide 1. Whatever the case, it does not fit PlanetSide 2. And given how long the dev team has spent, various dev teams have spent, because this shit has been going on since, like, maybe even the SOE days, like, so much dev time has been wasted on this system that, quite frankly, people don't care for. Don't get me wrong, there are people who enjoy construction. Fuck, I even dabble in it from time to time, just for the sillies. But it's pretty objective to say that the construction system is a waste of dev time. Why was so much time put into trying to make a construction system tolerable, that nobody really enjoyed anyway, and then nobody uses it now because A, it's still got a massive cert barrier, and B, it doesn't fit the core gameplay. If you're a new player, you can't build bases because it costs way too damn much. So any appeal that might have gone to new players of, oh, I can build a base in PlanetSide, yeah, sure, just cough up 30,000 certs to make that actually viable, and hope some shitter doesn't immediately flail or orbital strike you. I don't think construction fits the core game. I've made my stance on this clear many times, but you get the point. Second, why aren't we getting more, like, balance, bug fixes, those kind of things? We know via population data that the Arsenal update was the best we've had for players in a while. It didn't really introduce anything, it rather just tweaked the core gameplay. Now, don't get me wrong, some fuck shit came out of Arsenal. Absolutely, Arsenal had some blunders. For example, the nanoweave changes and the dominance nowadays of scout rifles and long rifles in general needs to be looked at. But we know via the population data that Arsenal was a popular update. It held and retained players better than Osher did. And Osher was an entirely new content, might I add. So, why isn't the dev team focusing more on those changes that will actually keep the core player base around? Because, for example, one of the comments I've seen lately on Reddit is that I'm not. If you're watching this, you know who you are. But he claims that the vets of this game have a toxic, obsolete attitude towards the game, and they need to be pushed out so the game can enter new markets and help new players. First things first, this game is 11 years old. Almost. It'll be 11 years old in a month. So, let's face it, PlanetSide 2 is not getting a substantial new player count. Pretty much at this point, everyone who's heard of PlanetSide or is interested in PlanetSide or what PlanetSide offers has already played the game and probably uninstalled. You are not going to bring in a large function of new players, and Daybreak does not have the budget to make a new big game. Nobody wants to make a PlanetSide 3 because why would you? It's way too expensive and wouldn't bring the revenue that, you can just get away by doing safe games, quote unquote, like sports games every year. So PlanetSide 3 is not happening. A spin-off of PlanetSide, as much as I would like to see a PlanetSide RTS, or maybe a strategy game or something, not happening. So why are we trying to draw in new players with all these big shiny features that take up a lot of dev time, might I add, like Osher, like a construction overhaul, like Bastions, I would argue, would fit into that category. Outfit Wars, I would argue, fit into that category to some degree. Why are we putting all this dev time into trying to draw in new players when you're alienating the vets? And this is, again, loops back to the comment I just mentioned where, vets have an obsolete, toxic attitude. Yeah, but the vets are the core players that are keeping the game alive, who are playing day in, day out. And when you put all this dev time into features that only alienate the core vets who are actually playing the game and aren't drawing in new players who would probably get bored anyway or get frustrated with the same systems that vets get frustrated with, you're just losing veteran players and not gaining new ones. And the game's not going to have a resurgence. Third topic would be lack of communication. Honestly, since Rel's departure, we haven't heard, anything from Rogue Planet. We've not really heard anything. We don't know who the lead dev is. We don't know what the situation's like. We don't have a roadmap, I believe. I think the dev team has been mostly silent outside of, say, Mithril commenting on Reddit about whatever. We don't know anything. We don't know where the game is going. We don't know what the plan is. If they're gonna put the game in a maintenance mode, okay, whatever, but just tell us that. Maybe if you're going to go that route, even just, say, hey, it's not plausible to continue developing PlanetSide 2 anymore. What can we do to make it survive as long as possible, whatever. Obviously, people just say delete Osher, delete construction, whatever, I don't care. But at the very least, dev team, please, I know you're not watching this, but please communicate. Communication goes a long way. Don't get me wrong, this community is toxic and I am toxic. But having a figurehead like Rel, at least, who communicated, did a lot, I would say. Even if the dev team is constantly fucking up, at least there's communication. Even if everybody hates what you're doing, at least we know what you're doing, okay? Even if you're pushing this construction system that nobody wanted, at least we know that something is happening. And in your own little way, you're communicating why you're doing it. And I'd personally rather have that than the complete dead silence we've had since Rel left, which was in May, I want to say. It was, late May? Maybe late April? I don't really remember. So, yeah. Hell, we get more communication out of the random Twitter engagement posts like, the new Prime bundle is out. Why are we still getting those, by the way? You could make new guns out of, like, all the Prime reskins. Like the totally not a Tech 9 wartime emissary. This could have been a cool new auto pistol. You'd have to change the model a bit so it's not clearly an emissary reskin, but this could have been a new gun. Like, it could have been some kind of content, rather than just a visual thing. And it's, like, this is just an unorganized ramble at this point, but I want to be clear in saying I don't want this game to die. I've been playing PlanetSide for 7 years-ish? Maybe even 8? Because I started in early 2016, so yeah, I've been playing nearly 8 years. I like this game a lot. This game means a lot to me. I don't want it to die. But by a population, we know that it is dying. Of course, there's always a summer slump, but these numbers are bad, and these numbers are worrying. So, that's, long story short, why I think the game is dying. I know this kind of turned into a completely unhinged 11-minute long rant, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there. I like this game. I'm sorry that I've not been making PlanetSide content, because I know that's mostly what my channel gets views on. So, hee look at this little view-hungry little video. But this game's probably going to die within the next 2 or 3 years unless things are done. And I know people have been saying that for the last 10, but for real this time, guys. For real, I mean it.